Good morning to all of you. Welcome to the program agenda. I'm your host, Cito Beltran, welcoming you on this second day of September. It's a Friday, and it promises to be a wet, damp, or maybe just altogether flooded weekend for some parts of northern Luzon or extreme northern Luzon as Typhoon Henry comes into the area and makes its presence felt. But don't let that ruin your weekend. Please join us today as we do another interview of a very interesting guest about her life as a public servant, public personality, but also on the key very important issues that are in the news right now. But before that, I'd like to thank all of you who are Cignal TV subscribers. Maraming salamat po, especially for those of you in the north or in Luzon. Please take care of yourselves this weekend. They say it's just going to be rainy, but mabuti na po yung nag-iingat. Okay, thank you also for our friends here and abroad who watch us via facebook.com/onenewsph, and those of you who catch us on YouTube as well as on Cignal Play app and our replays. Maraming salamat pa rin. And let's now go to our daily starter. Our daily starter today comes from or out of an interview done by the legendary talk show host comedian David Letterman with Billie Eilish. David Letterman interviewed Billie Eilish and asked Billie Eilish, okay, you've won 7 Grammy Awards, but what happens when you don't win any awards? How does that affect you? So if you would, Gab, let's bring out our daily starter today from Grammy awardee Billie Eilish. And today's daily starter goes, it shouldn't matter. It validates you to get an award. So then, does it invalidate you to not get an award? Does it mean that you're not good if you don't get an award? That's the point that was raised by musician, songwriter Billie Eilish, that awards are good to have. Recognition is good to receive, and platitudes are nice to hear. But at the end of the day, it should not be the basis or what validates our work, our character, or our life. Okay? Kung napapansin ka, pasalamat ka. Kung pinupuri ka, pasalamat ka. Kung hindi ka naman napansin, napuri, tuloy-tuloy lang because you are what you're all about, not awards. Okay, let's now go to the front page of the Philippine Star and let's go to the headline. The headline is Sugar Probe Ends, Subic Port Officials Reinstated. Okay, let's be clear about this. The headline is talking about the investigation or the probe conducted by the Bureau of Customs, their intelligence division, regarding the importation or alleged smuggling of sugar at the Subic Bay Freeport in Olongapo. Okay, because someone had said, oh, they're smuggling in Subic, so the BOC shut it down, checked the warehouse, and suspended BOC officials. As it turns out, there is no illegal activity. The sugar that was found in Subic, that was processed by the BOC Subic, was legitimate it was properly done. And unfortunately, okay, the damage is done to the BOC officials and the Bureau of Customs by allegations. Meron ngang isa dyan na who made so many comments and pointed out to all of this confiscated sugar in the warehouses, etc. And some sugar farmer in Negros said, nag-selfie lang eh. Ginamit lang kami. Okay, I'm just pointing that out for public knowledge. Okay, meanwhile, at the top of the front page, ABS-CBN and TV5 terminate investment deal. Okay, the highly anticipated, very exciting announcement of ABS-CBN and TV5 that they would do a joint venture or a partnership or a cooperative arrangement in broadcasting has now come to a close, or at least in this particular political season. Both companies have declared that the deal is no longer pushing through. Everything that was announced is no longer there, and no explanation is said. Okay, but if you read the story today, Terry Ridon, someone who has been talking about competition and level playing field, has said, this is bad news. Bad news because it would seem, or it may dictate, that in the coming days, months, years, and the future, for businesses and companies to be able to do business and thrive, they will have to be politically correct all the time or align with those in power. Okay. Cebu Mayor, in the meantime, Cebu Mayor Michael Rama has insisted on implementing their order that masks are no longer obligatory. Hindi na pinipilit magsuot ng mask in public places. Although Rama said, meron pa rin namang, hindi naman nila sinasabing no more mask. Sinasabi na you're not obligated in certain areas, but in certain areas, mask mandate will still be required. Okay, meanwhile, that will be subject to discussion with IATF and DILG. BBM to address pay gap among nurses. President Bongbong Marcos spoke on the occasion of the 100th anniversary of the Philippine Nurses Association in Manila and said, ay, tanggap kong nahihirapan kayo, you have problems with the pay, you want to do this, I recognize this. Unfortunately, the President did not come to the occasion bearing gifts or actual announcement. Kumbaga, speech. Speech ang binigay niya doon sa mga nurses, and that should be a lesson to the people in Malacanang. Huwag niyo naman papuntahin si Presidente sa mga occasions na ganyan and speech lang ang babasahin. Wala man lang nasabing, oh, I have good news for you. I come with a blessing. Okay? Anyway, Imelda, daughter's no-show in graft trial. Okay? Former First Lady Imelda Marcos and her daughter Senator Amy Marcos and Irene Marcos Araneta did not show up on the last trial day for one of the wealth forfeiture cases against their family, along with two other families. Okay, and they were told that, okay, as a result, you have now waived your right to defense. Okay, in the middle of the front page, you have a photo of residents attempting to cross a flooded street in Masantol, Pampanga. Di ko po malaman kung ano na nangyari sa Pampanga, but every time it rains, it floods. And you kind of wonder what happened to all the money that went to Lahar, anong tawag nila doon, clearing, operation, etc., etc. Okay. Super Typhoon Henry intensifies after absorbing Gardo. Akala ko si Cardo ang na-absorb ni Henry. Pero yung pala, Gardo. Okay. Anyway, that's what I was saying earlier. Super Typhoon Henry is projected to go towards Taiwan, Japan, etc. Bahala na si Lord doon. But we are not anticipated to get a direct hit. Although uulanin at please be careful. You might think, oh, umulan lang naman o sanay na tayo sa ulan. And marami po dyan sa norte, baka landslide na naman po ang mangyari. Be aware, be careful of landslides and flooding. Further down, we have a photo of the MMDA. Grabe, okay. Dati wala kang makitang police o enforcer sa kalsada, puro NCAP. Ngayon, apat-apat. Okay. Kompleto pa ng speed gun, and then meron pang motorcycle patrol rider and 2 enforcer on 1 vehicle. Okay. Anyway, they are now 900 traffic enforcers in Metro Manila in lieu of the NCAP. Meanwhile, transport group are asking the Supreme Court to force the local government units to reimburse the people who were penalized with NCAP arrests. Okay? Kasi parang hindi pa naman pala sila legal eh. Bakit nangolekta na sila ng multa? Nahuli na kayo. Huwag na kayong magreklamo. Okay. DOH planning to conduct a special week of vaccinations at the end of the month to boost the numbers for COVID-19 vaccination, particularly booster shots for at least 23 million Filipinos by the 100th day of the Marcos administration on October 8. So, ako po mismo nananawagan na, wala namang mawawala sa inyo. Kampante pa kayo. You will be confident. I already had my 4th booster shot. I am fine. Okay, cancer. Okay. Then last but not the least, 2 more stories. That photo nung Blondie dyan at saka mga Santa Claus persons. U.S. Coast Guard officers interact with school children at the J.P. Rizal Elementary School in Tondo, Manila. They are taking part in the Brigada Eskwela program. So, tunay po yan. Tunay na Blondie at saka yung isang nakasombrerong Santa Claus, Amerikano. Hindi siya yung nag-peroxide. And last but not the least, former Malaysian First Lady gets 10 years for bribes. Okay? The wife of former Prime Minister Najib Razak, named Rosma Mansour, was sentenced to 10 years in prison and to pay a fine of $216 million, okay, for 3 bribery charges. Okay? And yung po, no, ang depensa ni Mrs. I must admit that I'm very sad with what happened today. Nobody saw me taking the money. Nobody saw me counting the money. If that's the conclusion, I leave it to God. Nako, mag-iingat po kayo sa mga ganyang statement. Dahil baka pag nagharap kayo ni Lord, padala kayo sa kawali ng kumukulong langis. Okay, let's now go to our interview portion here on Agenda. And our next guest has been a regular on Agenda, but because of our new treatment, new style here in Agenda, where we do the past, present, and the future, we will be mixing personal with professional. But before I get ahead of myself, let's watch the intro video.
Senator Risa Hontiveros is one of the two Senate minority members in the 19th Congress. She is also the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality. Hontiveros is a known advocate for health and women's rights. The senator also received numerous awards and recognitions, including the 10 Outstanding Young Men Award for Peace Advocacy in 2001 and the Nobel Peace Prize nomination in 2005.
Okay, welcome to our first set, Senator Risa. Ano ba unang kakantahin natin?
Oo nga, para tayong may sabayang bigkasan ngayon. Pati yung aking mask ay ayan kakulay natin.
Okay. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, none of this was planned. It is unintentional, but I love the dress. I love the prints. It's very colorful. Welcome to the program and thank you for giving us this time of your morning. My first question, Senator Risa, is on a personal level. How does your day begin? I mean, what is your... Are you a morning person?
I'm actually more of an evening person. Pero for health reasons na pinipreach ko rin sa lahat ng mga kaibigan at kasama at pamilya, I try to be asleep from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. at least. And my morning begins by, upon waking, usually taking a cup of coffee, and then preparing na to go to work. So ganun ka simple. Pero it keeps me happy to keep it simple that way.
A cup of coffee, does that mean you don't take breakfast in the morning?
Kung before 7 a.m., parang hindi pagising yung tiyan ko. So, kape lang muna, pampagising talaga ng diwa. And then I'll take breakfast a little later, 7, or brunch by 10, ganon.
Okay, now wala kang exercise in the morning or mga warm up kasi people have watched you and sabi, how does she keep her figure?
Well, I try to eat and drink healthily. Hindi diet pero everything in moderation. Tapos in terms of exercise, dati meron akong college barkada. We tried practicing yoga in the morning. Hindi lang namin masustain kasi lalo na nung nagsimula na ulit yung session namin sa Senate, mas naging practicable to practice yoga in the evening. So, dati sunrise. So, ngayon sunset. So, yun yung exercise ko, Cito, yoga. I try or intend to practice yoga every day. Di rin nagagawa palagi, pero yun yung intention.
Okay, but how did you get into that? Kasi nauuso yung yoga. A lot of people seem to be picking up on it and there's confusion because when you mention it's your form of exercise, parang teka, I try to do yoga to be meditative, not to sweat.
You actually do both when you practice yoga. Kahit yung pinaka-gentle na yoga, kasama yung stretching at lahat, pagpapawisan ka rin And then there are more vigorous styles of yoga. Yun talagang nagpapawis talaga sila, halos parang cardio yun or halos aerobics yun. So it's good for both mind and the body.
Okay, but do you do it just when time is available? Because some people I know, they even do it in the office. And you're in the office all the time. You're sitting on a chair all the time.
Yun na nga. Kaya importante, lalo na when we're working, sitting down, importante to take regular breaks every several minutes or hours, tumayo, lumakad. Pero yung isang kagandahan sa yoga, Cito, ay you don't need a lot of space. You just need enough space para ilatag yung yoga mat mo. You don't need a single piece of equipment. The only equipment is our body and our mind, presence of mind.
And how long have you been doing this?
Nagsimula ako with a friend and teacher of mine, Joan Barriga Quintana, years ago. And then naputol yon. And kanina something you said reminded me that hindi ito recent phenomenon, yung pagpa-practice ng yoga ng
Yeah.
mga tao kahit nating mga Pilipino. But during the pandemic, for one, I was given the opportunity to return to the practice. Kasi yung unang kailangan kong mag-quarantine dahil na-expose ako sa isang COVID positive person, that became the opportunity for me to, ask Joanne, can I study with you again kahit online para maghanap ako ng mga YouTube videos ng yoga. At ngayon, may ginagamit akong app, yung Down Dog Yoga, kahit lang sa cellphone ko, para kung wala akong ma-attend na yoga class, I study with a new teacher now. I practice si Joji Balsita. She's based in Baguio. And we have a class, online class. Marami kami from different parts of the Philippines, mostly women. Nagpa-practice kami sama-sama. May class kami weekend mornings. Yeah.
How has that affected you, Senator Risa? Because I'm much older than you. But in a way, okay, in a way, we belong to the same, to a wider generation na parang face-to-face generation tayo eh. And then suddenly, we were all forced to go online. You and I are now talking online. How did the transition from live, face-to-face impact you? Because you also came from media.
Totoo. Iba talaga, Cito eh. I mean, in a way, I'm grateful na we have the online platforms para hindi tuluyang napuputol 100% yung connection ng mga tao sa isa't isa. But, there's really something to be said. There's something irreplaceable about face-to-face. Face-to-face yoga practice, face-to-face interviews, discussions tulad nito, even face-to-face learning. So, we're just trying to make the best of the situation, trying to maximize, optimize yung benefits na binibigay sa atin ng information and communication technology. Aware din tayo sa mga panganib, limitasyon and minsan panganib din, even in terms of the abuse or the misuse of the internet for malign objectives. So,
I was thinking more in terms of katulad ikaw, you're attending a group yoga session online. Yes. And, may mga privacy issues. Ako, praning ako online. So I really limit myself to just doing the show. But how do you manage that? Your privacy, your security as a senator, and then you're going online doing yoga classes.
True. Well, tama ka doon, Cito. And mabuti na lang our teacher, si Teacher George, is also very sensitive about that. At kaming mga students niya, we're free to turn off our video if we feel safer that way, if we feel too exposed doing class online with each other. And ang maganda, the fact that we've been practicing together as a class, as teacher and classmates for more than 2 years na, 2 kalahating taon na. We've actually formed a community. We're friends. Some of us know each other personally from before. Pero mas marami sa amin nagkakilala lang online dito sa yoga class. So, kumbaga may trust na rin na na-build. And before and after the class, nag-uusap kami ng tungkol sa kung ano-ano, ganitong mga kwentuhang buhay, our own concerns about various issues, including online privacy nga, national issues. So at least we were able to set the pace and the terms of our doing a yoga class, a very physical exercise online together.
Okay, but do you get affected or how do you control it? Kasi alam mo, once people become familiar, oy, Senator, paglaban mo naman ito. Oy, Senator, tulungan mo. It's like, teka, I joined to do yoga, not to listen to yak-yak.
Thankfully, yung mga kaklase ko are also very considerate. Parang kindred spirits kami with our teacher. And very rarely, actually, kung tanungin mo ako ngayon, Cito, what issues, if any, have you talked about? Very, very few. A few of us are activists like me, pero nakakatuwa na talagang, kumbaga, we honor that space, we honor that time. Now we're all here, we're all there to practice yoga, to recollect ourselves, to have peace of mind. So, talaga, very considerate sa isa't isa at walang panghihimasok unless ako mismo magbukas or unless may magbanggit and nobody forces any issue, they wait for the person to say, okay, let's talk about that. So, ganun.
What are the areas in your life that's off limits or private space? Because I know you have two or say three daughters.
3 daughters and a
You have,
son.
yeah, you have three daughters and a son. And I know some people in public office or who are personalities, they essentially say off limits. Basta anak ko, no photos, no interviews, nothing. Now, in your case, what do you consider? And I know that there was a sad part in your life regarding your husband, the demise of your husband. Are those the things that are strictly off limits, or is everything an open book for Risa Hontiveros?
Not everything naman, Sito. I've talked about Frank, my late husband, online. But especially when the kids were kids pa, maliit pa, di talaga ako nagpo-post tungkol sa kanila, tungkol sa pamilya namin ng mga anak ko. Kasi dumaan din kami they were targeted by trolls. And nothing angers a mother more or a parent more than atakihin yung mga anak natin because of our own work in the public space. So talagang sinasabi ko mula noon na nobody breathes with evil intentions in the direction of my kids. So nitong huli na lang mga taon na sila mismo, they've become young adults. They're also netizens, active din sila online on their own terms. Dun na lang na medyo nare-relax yung ganong strict boundaries that I set. Pero always on their instance. Hindi ako lang. And if ever may ipopost ako na mahahagingan sila, whether photo-wise or content, tatanungin ko muna kung okay sa kanila.
Okay. Now, well, as far as trolls are concerned, I have advice to many. One of the reasons why Satan hates human beings is because God ignores him. And there is there is wisdom to the word ignorance is bliss. I am blissful because I choose to be ignorant of these trolls. Anyway, Senator Risa, let's go for a quick break. And when we return, let's transition to other topics. And I have a question for you that I have been wanting to ask you. Nothing heavy, but I talk to you in English, you speak in English, you revert to Tagalog, and I'm like, ano po talaga ito si Senator Risa? Englishera ba talaga ito o Tagalog ba talaga ito? We'll go for a quick break. I want to ask that. I want to get an answer for that when we return. Okay, welcome back to the program agenda. And joining us this morning is none other than Senator Risa Hontiveros. Senator, my question before we went to the break was, what is your primary language? English or is it Tagalog? Kasi nagsishift ka lagi and para ako naghahabol eh.
Sorry. Since Daddy was Ilonggo and Mommy is Tagalog, we grew up at home speaking English. So, nung una hirap akong mag-Tagalog o Filipino sa school. But I decided early on, I think in first year high school, to learn our national language. May terror teacher kami noon. Takot na takot ako sa kanya in Filipino. But I forced myself to recite kahit balbal yung Tagalog or Filipino ko noon. When it came to junior and senior high school, I took our classes on Noli and Fili just with the Filipino texts. Hindi ko ginamit yung English translations. At lalo na nung college, kinuha ko talaga yung mga philosophy classes in Filipino so that I could learn how to think in our own language. Kahit nga, di ba noon Cito sa college, nag-aapat na semester tayo ng Spanish. At the end of which, I was beginning to learn how to think in Spanish. Kaya lang, wala nang ka-practice mula nun, so nalimutan ko na. So I too easily shift from English to Filipino until now. And I also love learning other Philippine languages, from Ilocano in the north up to a bit of Arabic in Muslim Mindanao. So, ganon yun.
Okay, so but during interviews, is it intentional? Because I watch you, I like to watch my guests, and I see that mental click. And sabi ko, is she being intentional now?
Well, I'm intentional about if the person I'm conversing with talks to or asks me something in English or in Filipino, I usually open with that language. Pero dati intentional, kaya siguro dahil broadcast person ka, journalist ka, you can see the shift.
Yeah.
Almost over the years, more and more naturally, lumilipat talaga ako sa Filipino para rin mas marami kaagad makasama sa conversation dito sa ating bansa.
That's interesting because I have been struggling with that for some time. Dahil media in the Philippines or even globally has changed. It has radically changed. You are a veteran anchor. You were in media for so many years. You worked with the biggest names in the industry. And I kind of wonder, what are your observations regarding yung pagbabago ng media? Kasi nung panahon natin noon, in the 90s, Englishan. Kung magaling ka mag-English, ang swerte mo. And my curse was when they forced me to do Tagalog newscast. Okay, parang hello. But anyway, what are your thoughts now on Philippine media?
Well, in terms of language, I guess isa sa mga nanguna to bring Filipino and slowly, hopefully, other Philippine languages onto the broadcast media stage would be, people like Randy David and also Butchabad, no, in Street Pulse, which I later joined, and Randy in Public Forum, later Public Live and Public Lives with Randy David. And because of all the furor storm, parang super typhoon about trolls, which we were talking about earlier, fake news, disinformation. Well, I'm glad that you remind us that another important issue to recognize and think about and maybe push forward is this issue of language and languages in broadcast media. May iba nga tayo mga kapitbahay na bansa tulad ng Indonesia. They have a very vibrant community radio scene. And 'di ba, kung sa iba't ibang probinsya at isla nila they have community radio, sigurado those are in the local languages aside from the national language of Bahasa.
But are you optimistic about Philippine media, broadcast, etc.?
Well,
Because well, yeah, that's exactly that response
buntong
already
hininga.
tells me.
Yes.
But I'm talking holistic, no? Hindi lang
Yes.
yung political. Kasi I'm sorry, I'm going to offend some people, but I am not the one who really gives a damn about whether people get offended or not. But we've reached that point where sometimes I go, beam me up, Scotty. There's no intelligent life form here. Parang ano nang nangyayari sa Philippine media na anybody and everybody can be in media, walang requirements, walang standards. What are your thoughts about it, being a veteran media person?
Nako, salamat, Cito. I really feel in every industry and every profession that standards never go out of style. We may update them as we must, as the world changes around us. Sabi mo nga kanina, broadcasting itself, journalism has changed so much, but standards should never go out of style. Dapat lagi tayo may criteria at the entry level for entry into any profession or any industry, especially something as important as world-changing as journalism, as broadcast media. I never would agree to censorship. I think it's always about self-regulation, whether in traditional media or in social media, and especially in combating vile phenomena like misinformation and disinformation. And just talking about current affairs, nalungkot ako nung nabalitaan ko, for example, na hindi na matutuloy yung isang joint venture between
ABS-CBN and TV5.
Yes, ABS-CBN and TV5 kasi hindi lang bilang legislator at taga-suporta ng freedom of the press, bilang manonood at tagapakinig, I had looked forward to the merging of those two capacities of content creation and infrastructure backed up by the law through a franchise. At lalo na dahil ang mga balita ay hindi na daw matutuloy yon because of political pressures. Oh my gosh, yun na nga yung nagdali sa franchise ng ABS-CBN noon para yun ang maging hadlang ulit for a reflowering of mass media in the Philippines. Lalo na sa mga panahon ngayon, ang dami nating democracy challenges pa rin. That's really so regrettable.
There are industries where the traditional congressional franchise have been removed. I believe I won't say it with certainty or confidence, but I understand franchise for airlines have been removed. And some other public utilities are now open even for foreign entities. True. Why do we insist on a congressional franchise for media, for the press, when in effect it is the primary form of censorship of the media?
Actually, and fair enough that assertion. Kaya live issue nga yung kailangan pa rin ba na kami sa Kongreso mag-issue ng franchise so that broadcast media entities can operate, especially at a time that freedom of the press has been and is still so besieged. So I think that issue will not easily be laid to rest, especially after this recent development, and especially recognizing na kayo sa media are the fourth estate in any democracy, whether more developed or, as Nathan Kimpo calls it, our Philippine contested democracy.
Okay, now do you think of legislative agendas when you watch the news or when you watch Philippine TV? Kasi may mga nagsasabi na we gotta rein things in, we've got to define products, we've got to make sure, and even, correlating education and industry. Kasi ang daming mga school of mass communication, but are there enough industries, jobs to justify all of this enrollment? Kasi people keep asking me about, can you help us? Don't get into media. Period. I graduated journalism just to make my papa happy.
Sweet. Well, when I hear reining in, sometimes I think there's too much of that going on. I would rather an overly powerful state not try to rein in other institutions, lalo na yung media, which is in fact a primary institution to exercise checks and balances vis-a-vis the state on behalf of the citizen. Lalo na kung may particular branch of government that is overly powerful or tends to overreach even vis-a-vis the other branches of government. Maya't maya, media ang tumutulong para i-check yun. But of course, the state also has a regulatory function. Halimbawa, in terms of the education sector, so many of the sectors in academia have said, we're in an education crisis. Our attention has been called about learning poverty. And just yesterday, I was in a great education roadmap briefing about what we need to do regarding teacher quality and teacher education. So there are so many entry points for improving ourselves as a student.
Let's take a 1-minute break, Senator. And when we come back, I'd like to pick up on all the current affairs issues from teachers who have been, or sexual harassment in schools, or sexual abuse, and then the sugar thing, etc., etc. We'll go for a 1-minute break. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back to the program agenda. And with us is none other than Senator Risa Hontiveros. Now, going into the business at hand, Senator, may I ask, because you issued statements regarding alleged cases of sexual harassment, abuse in certain schools. Now, what's our situation? Are these isolated cases? Should we dismiss them, as the police often do, that they are just isolated cases, or do we have a problem in our schools?
We may have a problem in our schools, Cito. Wish ko lang that these were all just isolated incidents, but the complaints from victim survivors have continued to come, and dating back years, if not decades. Most recently, unfortunately, we've had complaints from students and former students in schools in Quezon City, in Bacoor, in Makiling. And these are a mix of public and private schools, sectarian and non-sectarian schools. And we can't just dismiss them out of hand or continue to dismiss them as they've been dismissed reportedly by school authorities at gaya ng binanggit mo, pati ng ating national police. We've since passed the safe spaces or bawal bastos law, and this law requires our schools as well to be safe spaces for our children, for the students. May mga specific obligations for the schools under this law to provide for complaint and grievance mechanisms, to give justice to the victim survivors, at singilin yung accountability ng mga aggressors.
We're speaking primarily of sexual harassment and sexual abuse,
That's
both
right.
for male and female students.
That's
But
right.
I, for one, was a victim of physical assault by a teacher in grade 5, if I'm not mistaken. And I remember being punched in the stomach. And if I had told my father, that guy may have been killed, knowing my father. But are we addressing this violence against students as well?
Yes, the violence against students, of course, is also a crime under Philippine law. And one particular form of violence is this sexual harassment and abuse, and particularly addressed by the safe spaces or the bawal bastos law.
Okay, but what are we doing about, because, there's so much of this garbage about, we cannot public shame these criminals. They must be allowed to cover their faces. The victims don't get that privilege. And the sense of many citizens is, wala namang nakukulong. We don't hear people being sent to jail. What's our real score on that? Or are you looking into that as well?
Well, we have to look into that as well also, Cito, even in this pending investigation of the sexual harassment and abuse complaints in schools. Of course, there's due process. Everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty. And of course, we have early on demanded and required that victim survivors coming forward, especially if they are minors, have their faces and identities concealed, especially if they request this. Well, even if they're minors, it is already obligatory on our part. But we will proceed to identify those responsible and to make them accountable under the law, including under the bawal bastos law, and to deliver justice to the victim survivors.
Okay, now allow me to shift to another topic so we can make the most of our very few minutes remaining. The sugar-related investigations in the Senate. No one seems to have picked up on it, but huli ko kagad na may nakita ka during the proceedings. There were testimonies regarding who ordered, who signed, but you seem to be pinpointing on a premise that the administrator would not have signed unless he had tacit acknowledgement, approval, or he got the impression that it was okay for him to sign, and you seem to be referring to a higher authority.
Yes, certainly. And that higher authority, why should he get a free pass from appearing and answering questions of the Blue Ribbon Committee? So, diba, why would E.S. Rodriguez yan exemption, no? Napakasimple, Cito, ng pinapagawa ng Blue Ribbon. And this would not be the first time that an executive secretary or a high official or cabinet member personally, not just make a presentation, a slide presentation as he did, but stay to and appear again to answer questions. I remember then also Executive Secretary Jojo Ochoa, even then Vice President Jojo Binay, humarap sila sa Blue Ribbon to answer questions. So I hope E.S. Rodriguez can see it in himself to do the same, kasi hindi lang naman Blue Ribbon at Senadong naghihintay, yung publiko natin at yung buong industriya ng asukal ay naghihintay ng sagot. Nako, wag naman sanang intayin pa ni E.S. Rodriguez na ang mga miyembro ng Blue Ribbon mag-motion to subpoena him to appear before us.
Okay, now, in your discussions, deliberations, or inquiry with the SRA officials, has this been established that they did not simply sign on their own accord, but they were under the impression? Or ano ba ito? Kasi parang he said, hindi
Yun
he
na
said,
nga
she
eh.
said eh.
Hindi eh. Well, talagang hindi pa settled sa akin, for one, as one of the members of the Blue Ribbon, na they acted completely on their own. Meron kasing memorandum issued by ES himself the month before in July, giving certain authorities and representation to the SRA official on behalf of the Agriculture Secretary, who happens to be until now also the President. Mayroong mga meeting sila, kasama si Presidente, may utos sa kanila to draft a sugar importation plan and to draft a sugar order. May pagsumite ng DA to or ng SRA to the office of the ES, which ES presented himself in his slide presentation. And admittedly, many days before he said na nagulat siya about the SO4 and that he alerted the president about it as early as August 5. And, Cito, habang hindi humaharap si ES, dumadagdag yung mga tanong at hinala. I mean, what is he hiding, if anything? What information, if anything, doesn't he want the public to know? At habang hindi siya humaharap, dumadagdag yung mga kaso ng wow, mali, egg on their faces, right? That news of the ship last night or the other night na maayos naman pala yung papeles, so had to be released.
Worst case scenario, Senator Hontiveros, what crime, if any, or what was the blunder? I think that's as worse as it gets from my perspective. What is the blunder that E.S. Rodriguez committed, if at all?
Well, if at all, at worst, it would be yung mga hinala of a deal or graft and corruption. But at best, which is bad enough, a blunder, a messy, amateurish mishandling of what should be a very simple process. Napakasimple na mga tanong dapat sa ganitong usapin ng supply, presyo, importasyon, di ba? Simple mga tanong. Sapat ba o kulang ang supply natin sa asukal? Kung sapat, mabuti. Kung kulang, what are we going to do about it? In the package of solutions, is importation part of that or not? If it's part of that, ano ang quantity? 150,000 metric tons lang ba? 350,000 metric tons ba talaga? Mas malaki ba daw? Kung ano man yung amount, what kinds of sugar for household consumption, for industrial use? Nag-aaray na rin yung mga food and beverage manufacturers natin. When should these supplies arrive? And through what channel should they be distributed to the consumers and other market?
What do you think is their problem or their weak spot? Because clearly they did not cause our agricultural crumble right now. Kumbaga, this disaster, agriculture industry-wide disaster is not the making of the BBM administration. But what mistake or shortcoming does this administration have in trying to address the problems?
Well, I'll phrase it in terms of ano sana yung steps that I could have taken earlier and can still take now to put in order this fiasco that shouldn't have become a fiasco. Nanawagan na ako kay Presidente, although maganda siguro na sila yung concurrent DA Secretary, just to show that he would bring the whole weight of his office onto the agricultural platform. Pero siguro panahon na rin mag-appoint na sila ng magaling na agriculture secretary para may katandem sila to address the food crisis and let it not degenerate into a food catastrophe. Let him have a partner to examine and then implement many good proposals on the table for a long time. Halimbawa lang, just to give one, to scale up the recommendations of the PRDP, Philippine Rural Development Program, to look into the strategic reforms, not just in SRA, not just in the sugar industry, bagamat may mga studies at recommendation dyan, but for agriculture in general. And, develop the capacity to, as an ordinary part of any day for the DA, to take care of issues like supply, price, ayuda to the rural sector, etc.
Crazy idea, Senator. This is a Beltran insanity idea. What about regionalizing or at least, appointing a agriculture secretary for the three main islands, meaning Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao, for the quick decision and specialization by each island? Kasi sabi ko, mukhang nahihirapan si BBM maghanap ng super secretary. Baka mas magaling kung hatiin na lang niya yung tatlong island. What would you think of that idea?
Not such a crazy idea at all. Kasi ang NEDA nga, merong regional development councils. Previous administrations, di ba, sinubukan yung mga regional development, not naman czars. They had other names for them, like cabinet something for regional development, yung CORD, and there were other such models. So, not a bad idea at all. And sana kapag appoint na si Presidente ng DA Secretary, he or she could consider that, at least in the short term during this crisis period na pandemic pa rin, recession pa rin.
Okay, now, quick shift because I'm down to my last 2 minutes with you. I wish there's more for this morning, but our favorite topic, PSDBM.
Diyos ko, yes.
Okay.
Oh my.
Are you going to carry on calling for its how do you call it, for it to be dissolved?
I early on supported the calls of my colleagues in that direction. Narinig ko rin yung panawagan ni DBM Secretary Pangandaman na bigyan daw ng tsansa muli itong naging notorious na PSDBM. Involved pa rin ako sa Blue Ribbon hearing on the PSDBM DepEd laptop procurement, and I'm really intent, Cito, on widening the gaze of the Blue Ribbon on not just those transactions for DepEd, but napakarami na pala na ni-red flag ng COA mismo. PSDBM procurements ostensibly on behalf of various departments and agencies. Pero nako, over the years, ang dami ng unanswered question. So I think before Senate can even consider to give PSDBM a chance, gaya ng hinihingi ni Sec Pangandaman, it has to make a clean account of itself before the Blue Ribbon.
At the end of the day, is it kill the PSDBM or withdraw funds for its existence?
Yun pa, yung isang pamamaraan. And timing yung tanong mo, Cito, because budget season is about to open for the Senate in maybe a couple of weeks. So kung hindi sila mag-ayos, it's either itutuloy ng Kongreso yung pag-abolish sa kanila, and let's just strengthen the procurement services of each department. Andun naman sa bawat ahensya. Or another way to achieve that end is, you're right, withholding the budget. Kasi kung anong hindi appropriate ng Kongreso para sa gobyerno natin, ibig sabihin hindi priority, whether programa or ahensya.
Kumbaga, here is 1 peso, call your mother and tell them wala kang baon. Okay. Anyway, Senator Risa, thank you very much for this great morning. Maraming salamat. And please continue to to do what you are doing because you are doing so much good for the nation, for everyone's benefit. But also, please make sure meron ka namang me time, beauty time, yoga time, and family time.
Namaste.
Okay, thank you very much. God bless you.
God bless you.
Okay, that's Senator Risa Hontiveros, and very interesting comments. Wala po tayong pinapanigan dito, pinipick up lang natin yung mga nakikita nating mukhang hindi pinapatulan ng iba. Okay, let's now go to our closing blessing, our blessing for the week, and I have witnessed this happen this week. It is from the book of Psalms chapter 32 verse 8. I will instruct you and teach you in the way you should go. And clearly, the Lord has instructed us, me, a team agenda on the way we should go. And so far, in the last 2 days, we are happy with how it's gone. We hope that you would do likewise. Listen to the Lord. Be your own critic. Assess yourself and see what works, what doesn't work, and have faith. God bless all of you. I'm Cito Beltran, thanking you for watching Agenda. Please keep it here on One News PH.